obviously we have, that's the promise, right? So I had to make it kind of sexy so you guys will feel like watching. I was actually kind of worried this 4:45 meeting. I was like, hey, normally by this time I'm asleep. So I'm sleeping off the hangovers from the night before. So, hopefully, maybe this marketing tag will work, but I will deliver on this. The one challenge is going to be, it's going to require some effort on your part. Nothing's free, right? If I told you I was going to give you $1 million for nothing, then you probably should go take your nap, because it wouldn't be worth your time. But one thing I actually do want to kind of bring to point, why am I actually up here? We may have kind of set it out there, but I think I got to tell you a little bit of background. Not really kind of as we've kind of grown as a law firm, more so about before that. I was in the Marine Corps in 1996. I was at a radio on my back, and we were in a training exercise, and I got struck by lightning. And I was immediately knocked out, basically died. And, I was dead about 20 minutes, but I came back. And the reason why I came back is because a niece of mine, I didn't want to let go. And so I kind of made and when I actually came back, I was paralyzed initially, and I worked myself back. So part of the reason why actually I became a lawyer, and kind of what I'm doing now, is all influenced by that perspective. I feel like I was given a second chance, and I feel like it's my responsibility not to blow it. And I'm constantly reminded, so part of the spirit in terms of the things I'm going to offer to you all, most of the people here probably would not be an optimal client for 4 Eyes, but I don't care. I personally get great satisfaction in seeing other people succeed and other people kill it. And I personally like being around other people who are ambitious and motivated and do want to kill it. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about how you dominate. Because I'm not talking about some like loose kind of thing. I'm talking about stepping into the biggest market in the country and going in there and immediately making an impact, which we just did. So let's get to it. So this specific process I'm going to give you, 3 firms. We actually started 20 months ago. Firm number 1, as you see the revenue increase. Firm number 2, firm number 3. So not only did I do this in my firm 3 different times, but I really kind of went balls to the wall. We did it. But obviously we've been able to repeat it, and now we actually opened it up. I think we're doing it with another 13 firms. We're taking them through kind of like we're not charging anything like that, but the truth is that it's not what we do, it's what you do and what you learn. Everybody here is perfectly designed to get the results that you're getting. Whatever amount of money you're getting, it's because you deserve that amount of money. If you want to make more money, if you want to be more successful, you need to basically raise your appreciation, understanding, and you need to be able to identify the constraints that are stopping you from getting there. We have to ask why on the right question. We ask the right question, you can have anything you want. And so my ambition in terms of the reason why my firm keeps on growing and this and some of the other stuff I've done is because I like helping people. I realize now if I make more money, a lot more money, I already make a lot of money, I can do more for people. And so, I reach out to immigrants primarily because I feel bad for them. That was my way to kind of live. So I just want you to appreciate, this is not me being a salesperson right now. This is me being the motivator, the boot camp, saying, come on guys, let's go kick some ass, okay? All right? All right, let's do it. So, this is what we've learned in terms of installing the data in there. And some of these things you may have had an appreciation from beforehand that this was what was going on, but it's probably worse than you think it is. Most people here probably have a CRM, right? Because I've actually been really impressed by the level of practice of a lot of people we've seen here. They have CRMs, and the goal is obviously to put the data in, and you be able to leverage that data to maintain communications and make better decisions. Of the firms that we basically worked with, these are all actual, these are not pie-in-the-sky numbers. I've always kind of had a problem with exaggerating, and now that I went through this, I learned that my exaggerations weren't always true. So now I've spun to the other side of the continuum of I only try to repeat what I know for a fact. And it's actually a lot healthier way to live, to be honest with you, right? So, but for the 33% of the time, the lead sources are actually recorded. Now, everybody here may have a little bit better, but I'm gonna tell you right now, my guess is at least 20% of your leads you're not capturing, at least. And we'll get into some specifics as to why. Setting the appointments, this was probably one of the biggest eye-opening things. If we go back and we ask you all's data, when people self-report in terms of what percentage of their telephone calls they setting appointments, very seldom when we get to the real data is it ever above 60. I mean, some of our firms are actually the biggest in the country what they do, and they're militant in terms of monitoring. It still wasn't what they thought it was. So this is a universal issue, so don't feel bad. But the question is how do we get smart? What do we need to change? What do we need to constantly review so you maintain it? Because let's be real. We're talking about a funnel. All your money comes from this funnel. When we fix it at the top, it multiplies all the way down. The third one, phone agents following a script. So a lot of people here, you all have hired people to train your staff. You trained your staff in terms of being on the phone, how to do everything right. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, the data says that training only works 2 to 3 weeks. The data says it starts going down. And this last one, we're actually building an algorithm right now that our goal is for us to identify, based on the case type, the practice area and the lead source, we can identify when an agent is tapped out. Apathy is your #1 enemy as a law firm manager. It's not a lack of intelligence, it's not a lack of training, it's apathy. The problem is that they're not making money like you are. They see you driving a nice car, you get all the respect, they see you basically take off whenever you want, you go to great vacations, and they're making $10 or $12 an hour. And they're excited at first, but it starts eating at them after a while. They look at Facebook, they're seeing other people killing it, and they're thinking, I'm going over here and I still have a week and a half before payroll, and I'm already out of money. So, Bert said, thanks for all the encouraging words here. I thought that we were going to build some positivity in terms of what we're going to do. And so there's still in the apathy component. The lack of measurement is a big one. So the self-reporting, generally what we see out there is people have what I call semi-automated reporting or just manual reporting. The holy grail is everything's automated. All the reporting is automated. If you are getting automated data, what you can do with that data is amazing. And I'm not talking about SEO. I'm talking about stuff that people are already at the door. All you have to do is do the right things, and you could raise a few percentage points, and you can grow from 30 to 100%. The stagnant systems is another thing. So everybody here is going to leave, and you're going to go home, and you're going to say, Bert, I have 10 pages on a legal pad of all the things I'm supposed to do, and what, I'm just supposed to magically do all this? Well, I'm going to get real here. We have 3 lists. You have a must-do list, you have a should-do list, and you have a could-do list. Must, you need to identify in your list what are the musts, and you prioritize from there. Everybody has a bunch of great ideas that they're going to give you. They're going to say, oh, this is going to be better. And you kind of think about it, I bet you that does work. Not everything is equal, baby. It's 80-20. We need to go where the maximum results are, because we're about results. When you get to the data, who cares what anybody's opinion is? If you're right or wrong, is that we're going to make the right decisions. All right. So anybody here, raise your hand if anybody has read the parable of the pipeline. Really? All right, good, because I was afraid I was going to tell a story, and as my wife's not here to correct me, like, that's not exactly how it went. It goes like this. I thought I might have some type of representative from my wife's family here or something like that to fill in there in lieu of that. But it's actually a fantastic book, and it teaches a lesson, but we're going to take it a little bit further. So the story goes, there's 2 gentlemen. One's named Pablo and one's named Bruno. And they're relatively young guys, and they found a job to carry water, buckets of water, from a spring to a small town. They would carry the water every day, and they would take it up there, and they got paid. They did this for a few weeks, and Pablo says, Bruno, you know what, this is tough work. I'm not sure that this is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. And Bruno goes, what are you talking about? We make good money, we can buy anything we want, get out of here. Pablo goes, I have an idea. Why don't we build a pipeline from the spring to the town? We won't have to kill ourselves, we'll just turn the faucet, everything will be great. Bruno goes, you're crazy. When are you going to do this? He says that at night. So what they do is, they go back to work, and in the evenings, Pablo's doing his thing. He's working hard on the weekends, he's working hard in the evenings, he's spending all of his money there. Bruno, on the other hand, is buying donkeys for his wife, he buys a house, he's drinking beer, he's having a great life. Well, come that period of time, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, basically the town gathers, the pipeline is finished. Everybody goes around to that faucet, and they turn on that faucet, and the water starts going. Bruno drops his head. Pablo's a good sport and offers, hey, look, I'll help you do this too. We can do this someplace else, right? This is the fantasy. Now, obviously, the implicit message that we're all trying to get is, hey, we're all in the business of building a pipeline. We want this pipeline that's going to carry us over there, and we don't have to worry about it. Everybody here either wants to escape the practice of law or build something else where we have more resources. We want that freedom. I'm here to tell you, to some extent, I'm on the other side, but the reality of what we've learned is that if I was going to rewrite that story, I would say you would break that pipeline into segments. You would put dials so you could measure each one of those. We would measure the source where we're getting that water. We would constantly be looking for leaks and improving, and when that source of water started changing, we would be pivoting. That's the way the story would really go if you really wanted to be Pablo. But Pablo would still have a job. He would just have a much better job. This is where I'm talking about we got to get real here. The whole dream of, look, I have an office in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, just because I wanted to be on the beach. I just got back there from last week. And so, yeah, I basically get to open up the office in LA. Yeah, I get to do whatever I want. But I go back to the data because I know that if I own the data, I own everything. All right, so here goes our simple process, right? So we have three. It's funny that the slide kind of messed up. That's okay. I'm sure I have a misspelling somewhere too, and I'm sure it's a room full of lawyers, y'all will find that as well. But SMO, and it's relatively simple, and some of you all don't discount this because the nuance is coming. The segment, measure, and optimize, right? We break down the pipelines. We put the dials into each segment. And then what we want to do is optimize. And optimize is the holy grail. You know, I don't want a big red S on my chest or a yellow S with a big red cape. I want an O on my chest. I want to change my middle name to optimization. Because optimization is where everything is at. This is how you get crazy successful and you can create leverage. All right, segment. So this is the general breakdown that I deal with in most of the firms and what we want to do. And there's a specific reason for it. Some of you may have seen it beforehand, some of you may not. But once again, the complexity is going to come in 2 steps. The power is going to come in 2 steps. So stay focused with me. It's worth it. It's worth more. The lesson is worth more than $1 million, I promise. There's 3 types of capital. You actually have physical capital like money. The second capital is relationship capital. The third one is intellectual capital. The intellectual capital is the highest value because you can do it over and over and over again. So the lead aspect, everybody understands what a lead is. Everybody's got the issue right now with leads because their measurements are basically broken because they're not automated. The second one, the qualified leads. The qualified leads is hugely powerful. And the reason why is that because generally what we do is we have a receptionist deciding up front when they answer the phone whether this is a qualified lead. You have somebody who's not a lawyer, somebody who does not have a financial incentive to basically make sure that they're going to go ahead and they're going to take that case. And somebody who, for whatever reason, may just have too much work at that particular point, say, oh, they're not qualified, let's just go ahead and close them out. This is the gatekeeper. This is the person who actually has the PIN code to your bank account. And we're expecting them to deposit the stuff. Shows is the middle of the pipe. It's the greatest weakness. That's where the flex happens. You know, the appointment sets is where that happens. The shows and the hires are relatively explanatory, but I'm going to just point out one thing in terms of data. I know you all have heard this beforehand, but based on our data, non-attorneys kick attorneys' butts in terms of retaining clients. There are a couple of exceptions. Family law is an exception because I still can't. I used to work for Lee Rose when I first came out of law school, and I still don't know how you can do a family law consult without telling the law. But you know, other ways you can structure it. But I just want to point that out there. If you're not a believer, I'm not trying to convert anybody, but the data is what it is. And it's usually the lead attorneys you kind of get numbed out to, just like the receptionist. Y'all think that you're fantastic. I thought I was fantastic. But when you go back to the numbers, it's amazing. Some of these the newer guys will beat you. We think we're just living this thing in our heads. We're not living in reality. All right, so the measure aspect. And God, we trust everybody else bring data. Edward Deming. Edward Deming actually is responsible for the Japanese term Kaizen. And it's relevant here because ultimately optimize comes down to Kaizen. Edward Deming was an American manufacturing thinker who was brought to Japan post-World War II. As a result, when they started using Japanese products, they started realizing how poorly made they were. So the American command brought Edward Deming there, and he was so embraced by the Japanese in general, they created a national award called the Deming Award. Every year in primetime TV, actually it's there, and it's awarded to a Japanese company or person who basically has instituted, or let's say, contributed the most to basically establish or maintaining quality standards for Japan. So Toyota basically premises their whole Toyota lean methodology off of Edward Deming. Now, I say that, does it really mean anything else other than the fact of what I'm telling you is basically the truth. The reason why we want to analyze the facts is because we want to eliminate the opinions. Nothing gets fixed until we get to the truth. So in terms of the measurement one, this is probably going to be the challenge for most people here, one aspect. Now, some of you all may have an executive assistant, you may have somebody that you found in Upwork, you may have somebody in the office. But actually gathering this data right here, there's several ways you can do it. And we'll give you a way to basically shortcode something, and we'll send you some additional resources so you can get a strategy to collect data. Almost all of ours is automated, not quite. I changed some platforms and switched some things around. But once again, automation is the holy grail. You can drive much faster if it's automated. But from the qualified leads perspective, let me just go there. When I first actually created the software, the reason why I did it is because I had too many clients that were immigrants that did not want to basically miss work. They didn't want to pay a consult fee and come in to be told they didn't have anything. So I figured out, listen, we can use a logic tree. I can identify when they call on the phone whether somebody's eligible for status or not by this logic tree. It went over like, it was amazing. It changed everything we did. We as lawyers like to think, we like to find our significance oftentimes comes from the details. Look, well, the leverage for all of us to be more successful requires us not to have as much control. We have to be comfortable with it. Logic trees are kind of a neat way to make that happen. Now, in terms of the leads, like the CRMs, Excel, paper, the software hybrids, the CRMs are kind of sprinkled in here. The challenge with software, though, and I'm going to tell you about everybody else, we buy software, everybody does, I still do it, with the expectation this software is going to deliver us to the promised land. It never happens. Right? It's tough enough, you got to learn a new way of thinking, you've got to apply it, and so don't think that software is in and of itself the answer to everything. Software makes some tasks easier, but what software generally doesn't do is it doesn't involve strategy. You all make your money based on strategy and execution. You have higher standards than others, and then hopefully we establish habits that basically will propel yourself forward. All right, let's get to the fun stuff now. Optimize. This is where we're at. So if you want to teach people a new way of thinking, bother trying to teach them, especially the lawyers, right? We already know everything. Instead, give them a tool, the use of which will lead to new ways of thinking. What I'm interested in doing right now is I want to give you the tool. And it's going to prompt a different level of conversation. And in this conversation, you're going to find out for yourself what the problems are, what the constraints are, where the opportunity is. This is what becomes invaluable. Now, everybody's heard of Parkinson's law, right? In a summary, if you have a week and you give somebody a time to do it, they'll take the week to basically do it. To me, that is a completely pointless or useless law. It's because how do you really apply that? It's just an observation. Pearson's law, on the other hand, is very interesting. Now, I went back and researched Pearson's law to try to see where is this really coming from. I want to put it on a slide. And it was a little bit dubious, to be honest with you. I was kind of getting a little bit of different stories, but from what we have seen from our own data, it holds true. And so, although the statement says that which is measured and reported improves exponentially, my fear is that sometimes people are going to say, well, listen, my staff are reporting the data back to me, so it should increase exponentially. That's not true. Sorry, data doesn't lie, but staff do. Staff will not write down every lead because they didn't feel like dealing with it. They will go ahead and find some other excuses, because when you establish a benchmark of numbers, a target for numbers, they'll find some way to justify, to nudge the numbers so it looks better. I have one client, and I generally never say anything that's bad. I keep on telling him is as nice a way possible because he's killing it. Your numbers are not accurate. It's not real. And he just keeps blowing me off like, you are messing up my image of the world right now. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I'm like, well, I mean, could make even more money. I'm not sure if he's number 4 or 5 in the country in his particular practice area, but it's just one of these things that we got to make sure that the data is good. So here goes. This is the crux of it, ladies and gentlemen. In order to achieve exponential growth, so we have 10 plus 10 plus 10 is 30, and then we have 10 times 10 times 10 is 1,000. We want to multiply. We don't want to be in the business of incremental growth. Okay? We want to be in a business of actually finding the leverage points. The first thing that we do is we're going to pull the data, but we've got to see what the ranges are. We need to show our staff, because you're going to do this with your staff. You're going to basically identify what are the highs and what are the lows. Very important. Just a regular average is not going to drive home the point. Because what we want is we want buy-in. We want groupthink to solve the problem. Number 2, gather your team and have them pick the targets. What should be our goal here? So let me just give you an example. So let's say you have a set rate, and and your ranges are 55 to 65. You say, what do you think it should be? The staff's going to say, oh, let's do 66, we can do that. And what I want you to do is I want you to say, oh, wait a minute, I have no doubt you can do that, but let's just do 61. I know y'all can kill it, and it just leaves you that much more room you can kill it. Do you think you can get 61? Like, oh man, we're going to kill it. You say, all right, that's your number. We're good with that? Fine. We do that during the entire cycle. We let them choose that number. Now, if we're smart, if we ask the right question, we're going to get the answer we want anyways, right? So we're talking to lawyers here. So if I was talking to a group that were not lawyers, they wouldn't necessarily appreciate that, but we all know what's most important is the question. So the third part in this weekly review, and this is truly the money, this is the education, this is the Four Eyes University, this is how you will become, in the legal profession, you can dominate an area. You can utterly, completely dominate, and I can go about 10 layers deep on this to explain. In fact, let me see, how much time do I have? I think I've got a lot of time. I'm going to start forecasting. The beautiful thing is what we're doing is we can forecast problems before they happen. All right, you're going to come into this challenge next, and after that you're going to hit this challenge, and then this challenge. And people say, whatever. And attorneys will come back and say, daggone if you're not right. I'm like, I'm sorry. Human beings do the same thing over and over again. We think everything we are encountering is original. Unfortunately, it's not. Or actually, rather fortunately, it is. So we review these numbers every week, and you're going to, the challenge is going to be is you're going to have a target number. Let's say we pick 61, and your team is going to come in at 55% set rate. It's not uncommon. Average set rates right now when people are first showing up for 46%.
What do you mean by set rate? Just so I know.
Sure, so when a person calls in, this is somebody who could hire your firm, whether they set the appointment for that individual. And feel free to stop me, guys, because sometimes I just kind of go crazy, and I need to make sure we stay on. I don't start skipping over points. You all can't hear the voices in my head, and that's probably a good thing. But sometimes I'm having, I have sentences that my mouth doesn't spit out. So from a standpoint in terms of having that conversation, you're probably going to come, and this is where we're going to come down to. This is what you're going to realize. In fact, I'm going to go one more slide, and I'll actually come back. This is what you're going to realize, and this is something that you will not see anyplace else. This is what we've distilled. This is powerful stuff. The issue is that you're going to get there, and the first challenge that you're going to have is the people issue. So you have to identify, number one, are the people that you have in there, are they actually intended to be, are they good in that position? The second thing is we have to ask ourselves, are they engaged? When you're looking at that numbers, is it a lack of ability on their part? Making an assumption here that they have the training. Is it a lack of ability, natural predisposition, or is it a lack that they just don't care? It is always going to be the first issue you should tackle. Always. But especially in some of these other sales positions, people come and go. You need to constantly be evaluating your talent. Do we train them, and what do we learn from that standpoint? The second thing that's going to do is obviously people come and go. We're going to look at our processes, right? So what do we mean by processes? This is where we have to get honest with each other. So sometimes when somebody's setting an appointment, for example, I'm always going back right there because it's the easiest way for me to have a universal kind of way that we're all, everybody sets an appointment generally. Unless you're doing online ones, but the show rates for online appointments that suck. So to me, that's a waste of time and energy right now. So when we basically have a set, how long should that conversation be? What questions are you asking? What I constantly hear, attorneys before they actually see for themselves, is, a conversation longer than 5 minutes is way too long. The whole point, all they're doing is they're just setting an appointment. And nothing could be further from the truth. If you want the best show rates, or the best hire rates, that conversation is going to last between 10 and 15 minutes. Why? Why would that be the case? Well, you're trying to establish trust. You're trying to communicate to that individual that you all are better than everybody else. You all are trying to communicate to that individual that we have our act together. We're going to have a recapping everything. We've anticipated, and oh yeah, by the way, we have a book. Let me tell you about the book. It's on chapter 13. It answers the question you talked about. Would you mind if I sent that to you? You all are going to show up at that first time better than anybody. And what's going to happen is this person's going to make a decision in their subconscious mind whether they acknowledge it or not. I don't have data on that, but I've read enough to basically say that this whole reptile theory kind of standpoint that marketers basically do, they use the whole fear and just kind of reward-like systems, that's basically the way most of us make decisions. They're subconscious, we just try to rationalize them after the fact. But your processes and what you're doing to basically build that stuff out there is there. Now, one of the things that we do is, depending on different practice areas and areas of the country, we actually come up with what we call ideal numbers. We know the range of what firms do across the country. And the goal is when you dial down, is you're going to figure out what your ideal number is by lead source. You're saying, what are you talking about, Bert? Where are we going here? I'm going to tell you right now, if you find the sweet spot for how you convert the people to the appointments and how you basically close on the sale, if you have a consistent number, it's predictable. All you have to do is, everything is a marketing game. It's all about tweaking your marketing. If you do that, you can go any place in the country and you can compete with the absolute best. Right off the bat, when I did this in California, it took me 10 weeks to go from 30,000 to 125,000 a month. 10 weeks. Biggest market in the country. As long as you have that consistent process, all you're doing is you're testing your marketing. You're testing your marketing. And we don't need 10 sources. We need 3 strong ones. But that, once again, that's where this process leads you down to, because ultimately, if I actually go back one, ultimately, this is an education. You have to own how you acquire clients. So, how many divers, scuba divers out here? No, scuba divers. You're too tired. But your pipeline of the clients coming in is your oxygen. I don't care. We all may be killing it here, but every single one of us has some anxiety at some point in the night or some point in the day. What happens if it stops? How long can I sustain everything if the cash flow gets killed? If Google changes their algorithm? If they move a radio antenna, which they've done for me twice. You know, whatever else happens. If you own 3 solid sources that are kind of unrelated, you're basically indestructible. Now here, Harry Marshall, I'm a big fan. I've never met him beforehand. I've met a lot of the big speakers out there, but I haven't met him yet. And his whole idea, 80-20 sales and marketing, is really at the heart of what I'm talking about. It's really about where's the 80-20 and your attention, your resources, going to get the most bang for your buck. Now, he has this concept, what are the $10,000 per hour jobs that you're doing? And he's basically focusing on marketers right here. So most of his concepts are that. But I'm going to tell you right now that this weekly meeting, you have to do it every 2 weeks, and that's fine. You will make more than $10,000 an hour doing it as a result. The reason being is that, number one, what you're going to understand and you're going to learn in terms of identifying the patterns, in terms of what to change, you can do it at a moment's notice. To give you an example, I looked at my numbers on one commercial. Once I left PV, I've been focused on doing this and something else, and they didn't do their job. And I noticed on one set of my commercials, they were converting at 56%. That's 19 points below where they should be. I made a phone call. I told the guy down there, and I said, listen, pull the list of what everybody's conversion rates are on these computers. Let's take the ones who are basically below average, and let's go ahead and pull all their phone calls. Let's have them go through and make sure what are they doing. They need to figure out themselves why they're not setting. They're either players or they're not. That's what you're talking about, immediately cut to the chase, turn everything around on a dime. And you will be able to do that. Now, I can actually give you some other examples. But so from here, I'm not sure if anybody makes more than $10,000 an hour. I think it's the equivalent of $10 million a year. That's a baller right there. I'm not there yet. Maybe one of you all are. But $10,000 an hour, that's a pretty sweet spot. And so this is that opportunity. That being said, oops, 15 minutes. Great, good. All right, so what we're going to do at the end of this conversation, and we've actually talked to a few of you all out there, it's basically math, okay? So we have our conversion rates. This is where we're doing math. Some of you all have seen different versions of them. But ultimately, if we have, let's just say, bankruptcy firms, because for whatever reason, we got a lot of bankruptcy firms that are our clients. Bankruptcy firm, the guys that are hitting it all out are basically, as long as we have good lead capture, we know these are good, accurate numbers. The guys and gals, because they're definitely, Christine would be mad at me if I said guys, so anyways. But they're converting to appointments 80%. In terms of the qualified, I basically left off the qualified, the unqualified leads in here because that's kind of begs too many other questions at the moment. But so if right now, if the 80% is the sweet spot, is really the ideal number of really what you're trying to hit, these guys right here, as they're converting, they're only 56%. We add 15%, we actually take a little bit of time, You could be at 71% probably in about 6 weeks. Within 6 weeks, with 6 weeks of follow-up in terms of getting to that set point, you're going to identify what are the objections. What are the top objections that your people are getting? Why are they not setting? What's the issue? Well, they just weren't certain. Well, are you projecting your issues on them? Because if I go back and pull that conversation, I bet we said, listen, how about you come in and I'll give you a game plan for where you're at right now to where you want to go, no strings attached. Don't you think you'd feel like $1 million if you did that? Every single person is going to say yes. So this is where you're asking that question. So the set rates, the show rates, marginal, like 2%. If you do a better job on the phones, it's going to affect your set rates. Do a better job with your phone, it's going to affect your hire rates. And so just by this 15% increase, basically by figuring out, making sure that they're following the process and they're engaging those people and adequately handling the objections, you got a 50%, you got a 49% increase. In 6 weeks, you'll put yourself on course for that. And I'm really confident in that number. Really confident. You've got some people that are competing and you're really kind of spending some real time with them. You can definitely be, within 3 months, you can be at 80%. Now, here goes the thing I'm going to tell you what I also learned. Let somebody come in at 90 or 95%, I'm going to set the lying on the numbers. As you start getting above 90% of the set thing, the rest of the math doesn't work. Either that or you just have the world's best lead flow, and that you just basically are just plucking people or just the perfect client for you and you're the only person in your field. Or you're in contingency. You know, if you're not charging a fee, yeah, anybody can get a 90% set rate. You know, if it's just contingency rates, it's just the way the game is played. Now, I told you all about $1 million, so it doesn't really matter what income you're at. Okay, so this is the same one. But I move these to the optimal numbers. 80, 65, 62, and obviously we don't change the case value, and you make your $1 million in 1 year. And we're gonna send this to you, we'll send you a short code that, we'll send you 2 things. One, a quick start guide, that's free. The second thing is we'll send you an optimization chart, so you can actually plug in your numbers and you can review it back and forth. Anybody here, just to go through the exercise, we're here the rest of the 2 days, if you just put your name down, we'll go over for free. If you give us some of the numbers, we can kind of reverse engineer and probably figure out where it is, and you can kind of go from there. I will tell you that probably 3/4 or 80% of the people here probably won't take us up on that. And all I can say is, I understand you have a lot of things on your plate, but you have absolutely nothing to lose to see what your GPS coordinates could be. As long as you hit those numbers, you're gonna be on target. The plane takes off right, the whole way that's flying from New York to LA, it's constantly making course adjustments. It's the same exact thing. And you'll be amazed that these guys actually started, and there's a beautiful transformation. There's actually a number of things, excuse me, I'm generally a kind of casual person. There's a bunch of really neat things that happen in this. One of the things is, let's say we start getting busy, and maybe you all have seen this beforehand. Staff members see this, or a big check comes in, and they're like, oh, you guys are killing it. You guys are rich, and we're not getting anything. There's that little bit of a resentment there. When you go down this path, they stop thinking about the money. They're thinking about actually mastery of actually hitting that number. Now they're taking pride in terms of how you are converting because they're on the ball. I mean, do you hear me on this? Like, now they're excited to make you more money because it's not about the money, it's about them being good. It's about them building their self-esteem. And if we are basically, as leaders, I mean, honestly, building up our team's self-esteem and giving them more skills, that's one of our responsibilities. So I will say that it's especially powerful when we do this, we filter by lead source, because now you're really comparing apples with apples, and it's even more powerful when you do it by campaign. Which is when I went to California, when I did what it is, I knew exactly which campaigns I was going to test there, which ones are converting. One of our issues is that, I'll just tell you how it applied with us, is that apparently they don't have the same sense of urgency in California they do in North Carolina for immigration. The reason being is that in California they have driver's licenses, even if you're undocumented. In North Carolina, nobody has it. So there's more of a sense of, like, really of instability in North Carolina, whereas in California it's kind of like, you know, sure I want to do this, but we'll see. And so what we did is we started testing questions for the people who are calling. Why did you call? Why right now? How long have you been thinking about this? What would your life be like if you actually had it right now? Everything changed once we found the right questions. The answers became theirs. And that's where the whole kind of component of the split testing, ultimately, look, once you own your marketing, you have a consistent process, you are on fire. You're absolutely on fire. There's obviously other things you still need to take care of in your firm because it's going to create a whole nother level of challenges, right? When you grew, when the first year we applied this, Barry, what were the numbers for the first year?
It's 81.
81%, we grew 81, and I was already doing well over, 1 million or 2 million, I don't remember what it was. We grew 81% one year, and the next year was what?
76.
76% on top of that. So when you're starting multiplying millions, top of millions, the types of cases, those are good problems to have, but they're still really tough. You're handling 3,000 or 4,000 cases a year. I think you really do qualify as a factory kind of like standpoint. So, you better raise your game. You better get much better. But I'll tell you what, it wasn't like we were lacking money to put people in those positions, and it was predictable. So, I think that for the most part, what I can do is, pull out your phones. Our goal for this, in terms of if you all like to text that to optimize, it'll just have you opt in. Our goal is we'll just email you the optimization chart, your quick start guide, and I'm going to, whether it's going to be every 2 weeks or every month, I'm going to start pulling data from what we're learning from different practice areas, because as far as I know, I want to be, one of my long-term goals, I'm a nerd like probably most of you all here, is I want to basically communicate to everybody, these are the trends that we're seeing. And I don't think anybody else is going to have this type of information. It's actually really expensive to gather data and index it, but you feel like you're on top of the world and you find something that you didn't see otherwise. So if you'd like that, we'd be happy to share it. Like I said again, most people may not go down that road, but we still want to help. What is it when we were in law school? Maybe they didn't say where you went, but where I went. They said that the A students become the professors, the B students become the judges, and the C students make all the money, right? So I was definitely a C student. At this standpoint, I think I've kind of resigned myself that that's my goal now, is to become a professor in terms of the data. And what does that tell us? How can we influence our people? How do we basically track our people and know if this is the right person? How do we know when they timed out? How do we basically know if our processes are converting optimally? And then ultimately, how do we know that we have the sweet spot when it comes to marketing? So you're basically printing money. So that's what I have for everybody. If there's any kind of questions on a specific practice area, when I leave here, I talk about this stuff all the time. It won't bother me in the least. I won't try to sell you anything. You say, hey, what have you seen from here? And if I don't know the answer, I'll tell you, I think it's this, but I'll get back to you and I'll come back and we'll pull the data. We're actually doing another release tonight of another round of software. It's going to give me more access to the data. So I literally have a team of software developers, and this is what they're doing. One of the guys actually worked in the space program, and he says, Bert, I've put code out in space. All the things that we're pulling from and we're sorting on is actually more difficult than that stuff was. And I took that as a compliment. I'm like, really? We're like, like rocket science? This stuff is beyond rocket science. And he kind of reminded me, Bert, it's easy to demand, it's hard to deliver, so you're on the easy job, you're not the rocket science, okay, scientist. So, all I have to say, guys, is, and then let me actually put this out there, one last point, the power of that weekly review based on data. If you are doing well right now, you can do what I can generally, between 30 and 100%, everybody here is leaving between 30 and 100% of the revenues on the table right now. Everybody. I'm still doing it. Problem is when you get to kind of so big, there's just a lot of pieces there. It just gets harder to manage, all the kittens, right? But, we're working on it. But when things get bad, and I do have a belief that in the next 2 years, we're going to see a significant economic downturn in the country. I'm not a doomsday sayer in general, but it's coming, right? The market is unsustainable. It's been like that for a while. The Fed, in terms of them adjusting rates. So I say that from the standpoint of this right here is the ultimate hedge. When everybody else stops spending money on marketing, when things get a little bit more difficult, you can dial in those numbers and you know what will work. You can use this system not just as a way to attack, but the strongest defense possible. And we've even applied this in rural Georgia, where they're going to have lights in some of the counties, or 1 or 2 lights, and they were doing it extremely low volume, although they had a few offices, and it still works there. So you don't have to have thousands of clients in order to apply it to get the traction, but knowing those numbers and setting the mark, the goal, the target, you'll get there. Actually, I do have 4 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
So what were the rates again from the qualifying means to appointment to hire?
Yes, sir.
What were the rates you guys
So we'll actually send you the quick start guide that's on that just to kind of list it out for you. But so the way I think the best method possible, what you should be doing is going to be, it's going to be leads, then qualified leads, then sets, then shows and hires. And if we wanted to actually get really detailed on this in terms of managing your funnels, just for me to throw it out there, what I want to do is I always want to compare apples with apples. Anybody who does not set, show, or hire, I drop into a new list because I want to know how they all convert. And that one, now I'm testing my outbound phone calls. How many calls does I have to take for them to convert? Like everybody says, it takes 9 calls before somebody answers. I hear all these numbers tossed around all the time. I'm like, is that true? So we're going to find out. We're going to find out geographically, by practice area, how many times do you have to call on average before you get it, and at what point do you reach like 3 standard deviations, like it's not happening? Just go ahead and give up, right? You just send them email sequences. When do you stop calling? But one of the things that you can do when you drop into a second list, it's amazingly powerful, is that you know if your cash flow is starting to dip. You have people that have not retained. You can just double or triple your outbound phone calls, and you can fill that capacity, and you can level off your income indefinitely. Now, you have to have some volume. You have to make sure you have those leads. But your outbound phone call strategy is your safety net. And probably most people here, I don't know, I've heard a lot of good things, but by and large, people don't focus on an outbound phone call strategy in terms of nudging the leads. Because the phone, look, face-to-face is the best way to convert. Second one is a telephone. I don't even know what number 3 is because it's such a huge drop-off from a conversion in terms of what's most impactful. It's basically face-to-face or phone.
So Bert, when you say outbound phone strategy, you mean if somebody like emails the firm or you get a contact, that's what you're talking about.
Okay, so that's a great distinction. So let's talk about that. There's actually 2 different ways. So this is like 4 Hours University right now. This is beautiful. I love this. All right, so you have 2 different outbound telephone strategies. One, a lot of you will get what I call soft leads, right? They're coming in by emails, something like Nolo or something else. And so the name of the game is this is going to multiple sources. We've got to attack them as fast as we possibly can. What I call basically you want to do a shock and awe, baby. I'm Marine Corps. Hoorah. There you go. But yeah, we want to shock and awe them, right? But the other ones who do not buy, who basically you did engage with on a telephone call, where they didn't basically do that, what is going to be our strategy for how frequently we call them? Because it always comes down to a bunch of resources. That's one of the reasons why I went to Mexico, is because I figured my clients already spoke Spanish. People are outsourcing to India. I can go live at the beach down there. I can hire people down there. So now we got like 50, I don't know, how many?
52.
52 people in that office. We basically let some other lawyers do it, and I'm going to open another one in Mexico City, and we're doubling up space down there. So it's all about your resources. So somebody says, look, I can't afford to hire an outbound person. I'm going to tell you, you probably can't afford not to. You're paying what? Thank you, sir. I'm sorry. I got 1 minute left. There you go. All right. So did that answer your question? So look, out right now, everybody right here, you want to grow 30%? Apply an outbound call strategy. Get a person on the telephone, start following up on that phone call, start seeing what you will find is you will find that some people dial more and they convert less. Some people are slower, have fewer conversations, and they convert more. It's amazing. You want to find out who the thoroughbreds are, and you want to create an incentive program for them. Anybody else? All right. Well, everybody, it's been real. Thank you so very, very, very much. Hopefully it wasn't too much. Welcome back.
Thank you, Bert. You know, you asked during your presentation a very important question, and there's one person in the audience that wants to answer it. I'm a scuba diver.
That's great.
All right, one more time, a hand for Bert. Thank you very much.